hook it began with a signal, not from Earth but from the stars, a deep hum that echoed across the galaxy, bouncing through satellites and silent skies. For weeks, astronomers watched as a strange energy pulse moved closer to the solar system. It was not random, it was structured, intelligent, and powerful. When the signal reached Earth, it came with a message. By decree of the Galactic Empire, the species known as humanity will submit to imperial law. The message was calm, cold, and absolute. No one on Earth believed it at first. People thought it was a joke, a movie trailer, or a hacker prank, but then the ships appeared. They came through the clouds like silver daggers. Hundreds of them, massive ships that blotted out the sun, floating quietly over cities and oceans. The world fell silent. Every nation stopped fighting. Every war ended that day. Humanity stood together not because of peace, but because something far greater had come. The Galactic Empire had arrived. They were old, powerful, and certain of their victory. They had conquered thousands of worlds, enslaved hundreds of races, and now they had found another small blue planet with fragile beings who still burned oil and fought over land. To them, humanity was just another weak species waiting to kneel. But humanity didn't kneel when the Empire demanded surrender. The leaders of Earth gathered. They stared at the alien envoy, tall, silver-skinned, with eyes that glowed like stars, and then they said nothing. The envoy tilted his head and spoke again. "You have one rotation of your world to decide. Resist and be erased." The room went quiet, and then someone laughed. At first, it was just a nervous chuckle, but soon others joined. The aliens didn't understand. They thought the humans were insane. The envoy's expression turned sharp. "Why do you laugh, primitives?" The human representative, an older woman with calm eyes, smiled and said, "Because we've seen empires before, and we know how they end." That moment was recorded by every camera on Earth. It spread across the galaxy. Millions of alien species tuned in to see how the tiny planet called Earth would crumble under the Empire's power. No one expected what came next. The Empire launched its first strike, a demonstration of power. A single plasma beam aimed at the Pacific Ocean. The blast boiled the sea, split the clouds, and sent shockwaves across continents. The message was clear: obey or die. But even after the attack, Earth didn't surrender. Instead, the humans replied with something unexpected: humor. They sent a single message back to the Empire's command ship. "Nice fireworks. Want to see ours?" The aliens were confused, their translators even more so, and then humans fired back. Not with energy weapons, but with something simple and brutal. A barrage of nuclear missiles from old silos hidden deep underground. The Empire laughed at first, thinking the weapons were primitive. But when the explosions hit their shielded ships, something strange happened. The radiation interfered with their energy cores, disabling half their fleet in seconds. The humans had no advanced technology, but they had chaos, courage, and the willingness to try anything. The galaxy watched in silence as the Empire's mighty ships began to fall into the ocean. For the first time in centuries, the Empire hesitated. Their leader, Grand Admiral Tarex, stared at the data feed and whispered, "They are not supposed to fight like this," his second officer replied. "They don't fight by rules, they improvise." Tarex frowned. "Then they are dangerous." Back on Earth, humanity celebrated not with victory, but with defiance. Every nation worked together, sharing knowledge and resources like never before. Scientists studied alien debris. Engineers reverse-engineered small pieces of the fallen ships. Within days, humanity began to understand alien tech faster than the Empire had expected. They didn't fear it. They learned from it. News spread across the galaxy. Billions of alien citizens began watching human broadcasts. They saw a species that refused to bow, that laughed in the face of destruction. A species that joked even while under threat. In the darkest moments, humans found light in humor. It was madness, it was bravery, and it was something the Empire had never seen before. As the Empire regrouped above the moon, preparing for a second assault, humanity sent another message to the stars. This time, it wasn't fear or surrender. It was a challenge. The message said, "We're not your slaves. We're your competition," the galaxy gasped. No one had ever spoken to the Empire like that, not in 1,000 years. The Emperor himself leaned forward on his throne of light and whispered, Interesting. Let's see how long they laugh. But deep down, for the first time in his reign, the Emperor felt something he hadn't in centuries: doubt. The challenge: humanity defies the Empire. The first battle was over. Half the Empire's ships drifted silent above the blue world they thought would be easy to conquer, and yet the humans and the small, chaotic, impossible humans still stood. The galaxy could not believe it. Billions watched through the Empire's broadcast networks, wondering, who were these strange creatures who laughed while facing death? On Earth, chaos turned into purpose. Every scientist, every engineer, every hacker worked day and night. They tore apart fallen alien machines, mapping every wire, every circuit, every strange, glowing crystal. They didn't understand everything, but they didn't stop. Humanity had one strength that no empire could copy. They were fast learners, and they were desperate. In just 2 weeks, the humans had built something incredible, a hybrid weapon, part human, part alien design, powered by nuclear energy and stolen Imperial cores. They called it Project Phoenix. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't beautiful, but it worked. While the Empire repaired its damaged fleet, Earth was already preparing for round 2 in orbit. Grand Admiral Tarex watched the planet carefully. He had underestimated them once. He would not do it again. He ordered a full blockade, cutting off Earth's communication. No signals in or out, no supply ships, no transmissions. He wanted the humans isolated, silent, and afraid. But he did not understand who he was dealing with, because silence never stopped humanity. When their global networks went dark, they built new ones. When the skies were blocked, they used deep-sea cables and hidden satellites. When the Empire jammed their systems, hackers across Earth fought back. It became the first cyber war between a galactic empire and one small planet. And somehow humanity was winning. The Empire's AI systems began to fail. Strange human code infected their networks. Jokes, memes, strange messages. One Imperial officer shouted in confusion, "Our battle systems are filled with images of cats." Another responded, "And something called Rick Astley." The humans were not just fighting with weapons, they were fighting with humor. It confused the Empire, it enraged them. But most of all, it made the galaxy laugh. Soon, aliens from across the stars began secretly watching human broadcasts. They saw something they had never seen before: rebellion mixed with joy. A species that treated war like a challenge, not a death sentence. A species that refused to surrender, even when logic said they should. Meanwhile, on Earth, the first hybrid ship was completed. It rose from the ground on flames and thunder. Old human rockets combined with alien engines. They called it the Dauntless. It wasn't smooth or graceful, but it flew, and when it reached orbit, every human on Earth cheered for the first time. Humanity had their own starship, built from the wreckage of those who came to conquer them. Grand Admiral Tarex watched from his command bridge as the human ship approached. His officers asked if they should destroy it. He hesitated, curious. "No, let's see what they do." Moments later, the human ship broadcast a single signal, an old Earth song, loud and defiant. We will rock you." The rhythm echoed through every Imperial channel, shaking their morale. The soldiers didn't understand the lyrics, but they felt the power in it. A challenge written in sound. Then the human ship fired. Not with plasma, not with energy beams, but with something unexpected. A railgun shot made from repurposed mining magnets. The projectile tore through space, hitting an Imperial cruiser straight through its core. The explosion was massive. The humans had done it again, using scrap and creativity to destroy what the Empire called perfection. The galaxy was stunned for the first time in thousands of years. The Empire's image of invincibility began to crack. Other species whispered in secret, "If humans can fight back, maybe we can too." Rebellion spread like sparks in the dark. Back on Earth, humanity's leaders gathered once again. The old woman who first faced the Empire stood before the world's cameras and said, "They wanted us to kneel. Instead, we stand taller than ever." Her voice carried through every hidden channel, and somewhere, deep in space, alien rebels recorded her words. Hope was spreading faster than light. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor sat silently. He watched the footage of the human ship destroying his cruiser. His advisors waited for him to speak. Finally, he whispered, They are dangerous not because of what they have, but because of what they believe. He looked out into the stars and said, "Prepare the full fleet, I will end this myself." But even the Emperor did not realize that by the time his fleet reached Earth again, humanity would no longer be the same. They were learning faster than the Empire could react. They were building something new, something powerful, and soon, the galaxy would see what it meant when humans stopped laughing and started fighting. The turning point. Humanity shocks the galaxy. The sky above Earth was no longer calm. The Empire's second fleet had arrived, larger, stronger, and angrier than before. Hundreds of warships floated like burning stars above the moon, each one armed with weapons that could melt continents. But below them, humanity stood ready. The humans had changed. No longer were they just a single planet of frightened survivors. They had united under one banner, the Terran Alliance. Engineers, soldiers, and scientists worked side by side. Factories ran day and night, turning scrap metal and alien wrecks into weapons. Humanity was no longer waiting to be attacked. They were preparing to fight back. In the ruins of an old space station, human scientists had discovered something remarkable. A strange energy core from a fallen Imperial cruiser, still humming with alien power. It was unstable, dangerous, and barely understood. But humanity had always loved danger. They studied it, experimented with it, and finally, they built something new, the ether drive. A human twist on alien technology. It could bend gravity, rip open short wormholes, and power ships like never before. When the Empire detected the new energy readings, they thought it was a weapon. In a way, they were right, because humanity was about to use it not to destroy, but to travel. The Dauntless, now upgraded, became the first human ship to jump beyond the solar system. It vanished in a flash of light, leaving behind only static in the Empire's scanners. And minutes later, it reappeared right behind the Imperial fleet. The humans attacked without warning. Railguns, missiles, and electromagnetic pulses hit the Empire's ships from behind. It wasn't elegant warfare, but it was effective. The Empire's formation broke apart. Confusion spread across their ranks. They were fighting an enemy that moved faster than they could think. In the command ship, Grand Admiral Tarek shouted orders, "Find them." How are they doing this? But every time his sensors locked onto a human vessel, it disappeared again, jumping through space in bursts of light and chaos. The Empire's greatest strength, control and order, was being torn apart by human unpredictability. The galaxy watched in silence. Broadcasts showed Terran ships fighting the Empire in ways no one had ever imagined. They used asteroids as shields, redirected solar flares, and even hijacked the Empire's drones mid-battle. Every hour, new footage appeared. Humans laughing, shouting, working together under fire. They weren't fighting for power or domination. They were fighting because they refused to kneel. Meanwhile, deep under the surface of Mars, humanity built something bigger. A secret base known as Outpost Helios there. The first Terran battleship was born, the Resolute. It was huge, ugly, and terrifying. Its hull was made from recycled alien armor, its weapons powered by hybrid energy cores. When it launched into space, the entire Martian sky burned red. The Empire's scanners picked it up instantly, but by the time they reacted, the Resolute had already joined the fight. The first Terran fleet moved as one. It wasn't large, only 15 ships, but every one of them carried the will of an entire species. They didn't fight like the Empire. They fought like humans with improvisation, creativity, and chaos, and for every human ship destroyed, 2 more appeared from hidden bases across the system. On the Imperial flagship, Tarex realized the truth. The humans were not fighting to survive anymore. They were evolving, learning, and adapting faster than any species he had ever seen. He turned to his officers and said quietly, "They are becoming what we feared most, our equals." Across the galaxy, other species began to whisper again. If the Empire could bleed, maybe the galaxy could be free. Smugglers started sneaking human tech to rebel worlds. Scientists on distant planets studied Terran broadcasts, and slowly, the galaxy began to change. Back on Earth, the Terran Alliance celebrated its first major victory. One of the human captains, Commander Hayes, spoke to the world in a live broadcast. "We don't fight because we're the strongest," he said. "We fight because no one else dared to." His voice echoed through the stars. And somewhere on a hidden moon, alien rebels listened, their hearts filled with hope for the first time in centuries. The Emperor watched everything from his golden throne. His expression dark and silent, he saw humans turning debris into warships, turning jokes into courage and fear into fire. He clenched his hands and whispered, "If they wish to play gods, then I will remind them who built the heavens." He rose, his voice echoing across his vast chamber. "Summon the Dread Fleet," he commanded. The room trembled as ancient ships, hidden for thousands of years, began to awaken. Weapons of unimaginable power turned toward a small blue world called Earth. The final war was coming, but what the Emperor didn't know was that humanity had already set its eyes far beyond survival. They weren't just defending Earth anymore. They were preparing to take the stars, and soon the galaxy would understand. Humanity doesn't just fight. Humanity adapts, learns, and conquers. The war. The Empire strikes, humanity rises. The galaxy trembled. Every star system whispered the same words. The Dread Fleet has awakened. The Emperor's most powerful armada, ships the size of continents, built long before most species even learned to speak, now moved toward one small blue planet, Earth. Grand Admiral Tarek stood on the bridge of the flagship Oblivion. Even he, a veteran of 1,000 wars, felt uneasy. The Emperor himself had taken command of the fleet. No one had seen him leave the imperial throne in centuries. Now he was leading the final strike across the galaxy. Cameras and drones from every world pointed toward Earth. Everyone watched. Some expected humanity's end. Others hoped for their miracle. But no one could look away. On Earth, humanity prepared for the impossible. Every city became a fortress. Every shipyard a weapon factory. Mars and the Moon were covered in defense grids. And orbiting high above Earth, the Resolute and the Dauntless stood ready. Their hulls burned from battle, but their spirits unbroken. Commander Hayes stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring at the stars. Beside him, engineers monitored the ether drives, their hands trembling from exhaustion. Hayes spoke calmly. "Today we don't fight for land. We fight for tomorrow." His words echoed through every Terran ship. A calm before the storm, then the stars changed. Space twisted and cracked open as the Dread Fleet arrived. Gigantic ships surrounded the solar system, blotting out the sun, each one glowing with crimson energy, their weapons aimed directly at Earth. It was the largest armada in recorded history. The Emperor's voice boomed across every human frequency. "Your courage is admirable, but your existence ends today." For a moment, there was silence. Then humanity answered. Not with fear, but with laughter. Every Terran ship activated their comms and broadcast one sound. A single line of music that had become Earth's anthem. We will rock you." The beat echoed through space. The Emperor's fleet hesitated, confused. And that hesitation was all humanity needed. The Terran fleet struck first. The Dauntless fired a storm of railgun slugs, tearing through the Empire's outer line. Nuclear-tipped missiles followed, exploding in white light. Alien shields flickered and failed under the combined power of old Earth tech and stolen alien energy. But the Empire hit back. Beams of crimson plasma sliced through the void. Dozens of human ships vanished in seconds. The Terran Alliance fought back desperately. Every explosion painted the sky with fire. But humanity didn't retreat. They pushed forward, closer, until their ships were within range to ram the Imperial lines. On the surface of Mars, Outpost Helios launched its final weapon, the Prometheus cannon, a massive railgun the size of a mountain. Powered by the energy of a dying star, it fired once. A beam of blinding light cut through space, piercing the Emperor's shield. For the first time in his rule, the Emperor's ship was hit. The galaxy gasped. The unthinkable had happened. The Emperor's armor, forged from the hearts of collapsed suns, had cracked. Humanity had wounded a god, but victory came at a cost. Half the Terran fleet was gone. Earth's orbit was filled with debris and fire. Even as ships burned, the humans fought on. They used damaged vessels as weapons, turning wrecks into guided missiles. Their tactics were wild, unpredictable, beautiful in their chaos. Grand Admiral Tarek watched from his bridge, awe mixing with horror. "They fight like no one else," he whispered. The Emperor heard him, his voice cold and sharp. They fight because they do not understand fear. But he was wrong. Humans understood fear. They just never let it stop them. Then something unexpected happened. From the edges of the system, hundreds of new ships appeared, not human. Alien, species from across the galaxy, rebels, smugglers, old enemies of the Empire, all arriving to join the fight. They had seen humanity's courage, and it had given them hope. Terran fleet. "This is the Free Worlds Coalition," a voice said over comms. "We fight with you," Commander Hayes smiled. "Then let's finish this." The final battle turned into chaos. Dozens of species fighting side by side for the first time in history. The galaxy united, not under fear, but under laughter, courage, and freedom. And at the heart of it, humanity led the charge. The Emperor watched as his fleet began to fall. He had ruled for thousands of years, and never before had anyone dared to challenge him. Now the entire galaxy stood against him. He clenched his fists, his voice breaking the silence. "This is not over." He ordered a retreat. The dread fleet began to vanish into hyperspace, leaving behind a battlefield of fire and victory. Humanity had done the impossible. They had survived the wrath of a god. Commander Hayes looked at the stars and whispered, "We're still here." His ship floated quietly among the wreckage, surrounded by allies. For the first time in galactic history, the Empire had lost, and every world that watched knew it. The age of fear was ending, but even as celebrations began, the humans knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning, because they had seen what waited beyond. And now the stars themselves were calling. The legacy, humanity, changes the galaxy. Forever, the war was over. The sky was quiet. Smoke drifted across the stars where once the Empire's mighty fleet had stood. The galaxy had changed forever, and at the center of it all stood humanity. Earth was scarred but unbroken. Cities rebuilt themselves in the glow of victory. Ships filled the orbit carrying supplies, rebuilding stations, and collecting the wounded. For the first time in its history, humanity looked toward the stars not with fear, but with ownership. They had earned their place among the stars. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Hayes stood in silence. He watched as the Free Worlds Coalition ships drifted beside Terran vessels. Aliens and humans working together, sharing food, tools, and laughter. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Empires had ruled by fear. But humanity had built unity through defiance. Down on Earth, the people celebrated. From New York to Nairobi, from Tokyo to Karachi, billions stood beneath the stars that once symbolized distance and danger. Now they were symbols of victory. Children played with pieces of alien metal, and old soldiers stared at the sky with tears in their eyes, because for the first time they knew they were not alone, and they were not small. In the Imperial Palace far away across the galaxy, the Emperor sat in silence. His throne room, once filled with light and pride, now felt cold. His fleets were broken, his enemies united. And worst of all, the idea of humanity had spread farther than any ship could fly. He whispered to his generals, "They didn't conquer us with weapons. They conquered us with belief." That belief had become unstoppable. Every world that had once feared the Empire now whispered the same name. Humans, a species that laughed in the face of extinction, a species that turned defeat into invention and pain into progress on Mars. The Terran Alliance formed a new council. It was not made of politicians, but explorers, engineers, and scientists. Their goal was no longer just survival, it was expansion. They began building the Terran Starfleet, a new generation of ships designed not for war, but for exploration. Their motto was simple: to rebuild what fear destroyed. Commander Hayes gave one final speech before the new fleet's launch. He stood before a crowd of humans and aliens alike and said, "We fought for freedom, not for power. We laughed at gods, not because we were fearless, but because we refused to live in chains. And now, together, we will build something greater than any empire." His words spread through the galaxy. On distant worlds, alien children began to learn human songs. Rebel armies painted Terran flags on their armor, and deep in space, old Imperial officers began to question the lies they had served. But humanity wasn't finished. The Dauntless and Resolute were rebuilt. Joined by hundreds of new ships, the Terran fleet now stretched across the stars, not to conquer but to connect. Wherever they went, they brought hope, laughter, and the courage to stand free one day. In the farthest edge of the galaxy, a strange signal was found. A message from a civilization older than the Empire. A warning, written in a dead language: beware the ones who laugh at the dark, for they cannot be tamed. The scientists smiled. They knew exactly who that message was talking about. Humanity, the species that met the Empire and laughed. The species that turned ruins into strength. The species that taught the galaxy what it truly meant to be free. As the first Terran exploration fleet jumped into the unknown, the stars shimmered brighter. A voice echoed through the comms, calm and proud. This is the Terran Starfleet. Humanity is coming, and we're bringing everyone with us. And across the galaxy, millions smiled because they all knew. Where humans went, change followed. Empires fell, hope rose, and laughter echoed through the stars. For the first time in the history of the galaxy, the future didn't belong to the powerful. It belonged to the dreamers. It belonged to the fearless. It belonged to humanity.